It was recently reported that the Carolina Hurricanes will be signing Brendan Lemieux. How does this help or hurt the Hurricanes, and what are the remaining roster holes? We'll be discussing that in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this Tuesday afternoon. And I'm joined once again, as always, by my co-host, Andrew Schnittker. How are you doing on this Tuesday afternoon, Andrew?
Well, I'm fired up after watching that new Ahsoka trailer. We won't get into that. We'll keep it to hockey here, but yeah, man, I'm pumped today.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed watching that trailer just before we started recording. That was so fun. I cannot wait till August 23rd for that 2-episode premiere. But sticking to hockey, this is a Carolina Hurricanes podcast, not a Star Wars podcast, as much as we'd love it to be. But it was reported by Elliot Friedman just a little bit ago that the Carolina Hurricanes will be signing Brendan Lemieux to a 1-year, $800,000 contract. And this was not the news we expected to get today. As we discussed yesterday, we were fully expecting the Tony DeAngelo trade stuff to be coming out. But that has yet to happen, and now we're getting this signing. It is important to note that there has not been an official one come from the Carolina Hurricanes or Brendan Lemieux. So this is just, coming off of, what he's saying. There has not been an official announcement from the Hurricanes yet, though.
Yeah, I mean, if Elliot Friedman is out here reporting contract terms, it's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a move. Brendan Lemieux, he's definitely, if you're looking at the Hurricanes to add more grit, more toughness, really just a jerk, to use a PC term. I mean, Brendan Lemieux is certainly that. He's physical. He takes a lot of penalties. Your hope would be that Rod Brind'amour can keep him from crossing the line, keep him
Not biting anyone.
From biting anyone. Yeah, that would be good if that wasn't something that we had to see, but I don't expect him to play a ton. Like, I'd probably set the over-under on games he plays in the regular season at 20, 25 games. He's a depth forward. I think he fills that 13th forward role. He played, he did play about, 45 games between the Kings and Flyers last year. He has never played 82 games in a season. So, yeah, I mean, that's what this is. I think it's a depth forward, gives you some more physicality, some more toughness, a guy who will go out there and mix it up if you need it. At $800K doesn't impact your cap situation all that much, so you're fine there. In the playoffs, if you get into a series where things get really physical, things get really rough and tumble, you've got the opposition taking liberties with your top players. Maybe you throw him out there for a game or two as a deterrent to that, a guy who's not afraid to really get in there, drop the gloves, mix it up. So this isn't something I would have called a huge need for the Hurricanes, especially with the addition of Michael Bunting. But I get it. I do get it. I get what they're looking for here. You're looking for that added depth at forward, that physicality, that grit, that toughness that people have talked about the Hurricanes wanting to add. So I do understand what they're trying to do here.
Yeah, it's interesting what they're doing because, they were obviously going to have to rebuild their bottom line, their fourth line again. It was because that was yet another year of just a whole bunch of turnover there on that fourth line of Stasny being on 1 year Stepan being on year, Jack Drury, him being the only one that was still under contract, but he had already requested a trade. So there was going to be some turnover down there on that bottom line. But it was very interesting move, not one that we expected. And, you mentioned him not having played a full 82 games. And with them having to do so, again, rebuild that fourth line in another off season, kind of makes you wonder, like, is he gonna be a constant face on that fourth line, or like you said, will he be the 13th forward, given there's still a bunch of off season to go? We still got training camp and all of that. So, they could still, make another trade, make another free agent signing, guys, make the jump up to the NHL from the AHL. So there's still changes that can be made, but it, like you said, he is one that is gonna bring some grit to the Hurricanes, and, because that is kinda something that they they could use. They could use that, and, one thing, like you said, is, when it comes to penalty minutes, and that's, from what I've seen, a lot of folks concern, when it comes to how many penalties he takes. We already mentioned the whole biting thing, that I don't think we'll see that this season. That is one thing. I don't think we'll see him bite anyone this year.
No, I
But
think Rod Brind'amour can probably have a good conversation with him of, hey, we don't do that here.
yeah, we don't bite people. But yeah, I think we'll be fine there. But definitely, the amount of penalties he takes is going to be interesting to see how that goes. But we're talking some good, we're talking some bad, and we're going to further talk about how he can help or hurt the Carolina Hurricanes in this coming season, and we will do that right after this quick break, folks. All right, folks, it's baseball season. You guys know we love baseball here on Locked On Hurricanes. And if you're wanting to bet on the MLB on your favorite team, do so with FanDuel. So take your first swing at betting on the MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right, just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's 200 you can spend betting on everything from the money line to the over under to who you think is going to get the first home run. All that on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on the MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit fanduel.com/locked on to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's fanduel.com/locked on. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Now, diving back into Brendan Lemieux. Again, like we said, not the news we thought we were going to be talking about today. But how he can help or hurt the Hurricanes is going to be very interesting. Again, we already mentioned the grit and physicality that he plays with, and I do think that is one that that's something that can definitely help the Hurricanes, because that's been something in the past that they've been lacking. And it's, I think in that way it's a good move. It's kind of the same thing they did with Michael Bunting, really, bringing him in.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I think you add that grit, you add that physicality, you add that guy that you can plug in there when you feel like that's a presence you need. Another guy, if injuries pop up that you can plug in there, that can play on the fourth line. I don't see him being a permanent fixture on that fourth line, just because I think there's a lot. He's an option, but I think there's a lot of different ways the Hurricanes can go. Right now, they still have Jack Drury. I think he's a good option for your fourth line center. I think that, guys like Jamison Reese, Vasily Ponomarev, who could potentially be looking to make the jump to the NHL this season, could be options there. I also think if you make another add or two at forward, like we've talked about them doing, like with the Vladimir Tarasenko or an Elias Lindholm, and you really beef up that top nine to the point where, say, Jesperi Kotkaniemi is centering a third scoring line, maybe that Martinook, Stahl, Thos line becomes your fourth line. So I think there's still a lot of directions the Hurricanes can go with the fourth line. I think Brendan Lemieux is an option, but when it's all said and done, I don't think he's going to be a regular on that fourth line. I do think he's going to be more of that 13th forward type.
Yeah, I agree there. And it's going to be one that I think we're really going to have to wait out to really see what happens here. But I do think definitely the 13th forward is definitely probably the most likely for him. And, a thing, like I said earlier, that a lot of folks are concerned about is the way he takes so many penalties. And you mentioned earlier, joking, with the whole biting thing of, him and Rod Brind'amour having a conversation. And, it's one that I definitely think that is a conversation that is definitely going to happen, for sure. And, very much like, was probably had when Tony D'Angelo was brought in a couple of years ago, of how, they definitely had a conversation of him, staying in line and not doing anything, stupid. So I definitely feel like that's gonna be something that happens for sure. But yeah, he's definitely going to have to keep that under control because, yes, the Hurricanes penalty kill is really, really good. We all know that, but they can only do so much,
Yeah,
and
I
if
don't think you. Sorry, go ahead.
and if they're constantly having to clean up his mistake, because he took this slashing penalty, this roughing penalty, or whatever it may be, that he decides to do, they're definitely going to he's gonna have to get that stuff in check.
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, you don't want to be on the penalty kill all the time. You don't want to be hurting the flow of the game by not playing at 5-on-5. Be constantly killing penalties, even though this is a really good penalty kill. You don't want to be testing it that often.
Yeah, it's definitely something that they're going to have to really hammer home with him, of not taking so many dumb penalties that he has a history of doing. Like, yes, I'm pretty confident that they're bringing him in for that physicality and grit, that he brings. I'm 100% confident in that. But they're really gonna have to, everyone, the coaching staff and the team itself, they're really going to have to, be like, hey, we don't bite people here. We don't do this. We don't do that. There, I definitely feel like once, he gets here and they start, given, I'm sure, he's probably, already gotten some phone calls and text messages, but definitely like when everyone is in Raleigh, I definitely feel like that's going to be something that they talk about with him for sure. Of
Well, that
not
hurt.
being be a
Yeah, well, that
pest,
hurt.
but don't be a jerk.
Well, the Hurricanes do play the Ottawa Senators on opening night, and I believe Brady Tkachuk was the player who Brendan Lemieux is infamous for biting. So that could be interesting if he draws into the opening night lineup.
Yeah. And also the way you just pronounced it, Chuck. I'm glad my camera stopped working because I just gagged at the way you pronounced that. But yeah, that's definitely going to be interesting if he does slot into that opening night lineup. Because, like you said, of him playing them playing Ottawa and Brady being on that team and being the guy that he bit, you figure I know they've played each other since then, but there's gonna be some bad blood there. You know that. And that's definitely gonna be something if he's on the ice for that, that's gonna be fun, in quotes, to see, how that would play out for sure. But it it's going to be really fun to see how they utilize him, for sure. He's definitely a fourth line, 13th guy. He's not going to slot into the top line or anything like that. But he's definitely a guy. Like if you're going against an opponent that it's going to be a tough opponent. Let's just say the Florida Panthers. Tough opponent. You just lost to them in the conference final, and you want to knock them off their game, get in their head, get under their skin. He's a guy you could really throw out there and do that. To pull a Mike Maniscalco here and bring up Ted Lasso, like Jamie Tart in Ted Lasso. Obviously, Tart is really really good, and Brendan Lemieux, he's a depth guy, but guy, he's a jerk, and gets under the other player's skin. Brendan Lemieux, they could maybe utilize him in that kind of role, and it's going to be interesting to see how they utilize him for sure.
Yeah, definitely it is.
And like we said, we feel that he is going to be the 13th forward. He's the extra guy. But the Carolina Hurricanes, like I said earlier at the top of the episode, they do still have some other roster holes to fill, and we will discuss those other roster holes right after this quick break, folks. All right, folks, we are back. And again, there are still some roster holes for the Carolina Hurricanes. And, we mentioned, with Lemieux maybe slotting in there on that fourth line. Don't necessarily think it'll be a full season type deal, but, you never know. But again, they do still have some other holes to fill. Again, that fourth line. Their top 6 is pretty much set. And then, same with third line. It's really, again, that fourth line and then that third defensive pairing that the question marks are, or where the question marks are right now. And, you sent me a thing earlier that, Elliot Friedman, again said, that, the Canes and Penguins are still in on Eric, or it's down to the Hurricanes and the Penguins for Erik Karlsson. They're still in the mix on Tarasenko, and the Aho extension will likely come whenever Karlsson and Tarasenko situations are done. So you still have those there that are in the mix. So, obviously, you throw in Erik Karlsson, that can, pretty much fill out your defenseman group. You add in Tarasenko, again, we think, he probably won't be, on the ice for all 82 games, but, just for the sake of, conversation, he fills that one of those holes on the fourth line. Drury, Lemieux, and then someone else. You add in Tarasenko, you just say you bump Martin back down to the fourth line. Boom, your fourth line is filled. Then you have, whoever, else would move down to the third line. Let's say Teravainen, moves down to the third line. Tarasenko there on that second line. But, those are moves that could definitely fill stuff out, but those aren't guaranteed deals. Those are deals where it's going to take a lot of math, to make everything fit under the salary cap, because like we've said before with Karlsson, San Jose will have to retain salary. They could possibly have to have a third team be involved to pick up a little bit of salary as well. Then Tarasenko, he's not going to come cheap either, and you don't have a whole lot of cap space to work with now. You've spent a lot of it this offseason, so there's not a whole lot of holes, but they're ones that could be filled easily, but also not filled easily.
Yeah, the interesting thing for me is like there really aren't like holes as it stands right now. Like you look at the defense right now, you've got Jacob Slavin and Brent Burns, and you could do this without making another move on defense and just have a stacked blue line. You could play Slavin and Burns together. You could play Dmitry Orlov with Brett Pesce, and you could play Brady Shea with Jaden Chatfield and just have a stacked blue line for a year without making another move. Now, like we've said, we don't think they're going to do that. We think they are going to move Brett Pesce with a year left on his deal. They're going to do their best to add Erik Karlsson. They may or may not still add Tony DeAngelo. So while we do think there's more moves to come there, that's the interesting and kind of exciting part here is there aren't moves the Hurricanes have to make. And I think the additional moves that you're going to see them make would be ones that would really put them over the top. Like swapping a Brett Pesce for an Erik Karlsson and the offense he brings, like adding a Vladimir Tarasenko or another goal scorer and moving some salary out to accommodate that. So the Hurricanes have pretty set groups because even now you look at, like you talked about the fourth line. I mean, on paper right now, your fourth line would be Brendan Lemieux, Jack Drury, and Stefan Nason.
That'd be a fine honestly, I totally forgot about Nason being on the roster. Literally totally forgot about him, and I love him. But it's interesting. It really is because you have these moves that are still rumored for the Hurricanes to be in on, but they're also like you said, they could be done today. Like that Lemieux signing becomes official. They don't have to make any more moves. Their roster is full. But and they'd be good, to go for next season. And they got a pretty stinking good team. It's not like it's a team of a bunch of scrubs or anything like that. No, they got a team that could contend again. But now they're still looking to add these other guys, and that's really cool stuff because like we've said so many times in the past, like you ask a Hurricanes fan that was a fan 10 years ago, something like this is just unheard of for them. They'd laugh in your face back then.
Yeah, no, it's like we've said, it's a big departure from the we like our group days. Like we said, they don't have to make another move because they have a really good team, but we still expect them to make other moves to keep trying to make this better. And we keep coming back to this, but that's what's so exciting now is having an owner who's willing to spend to the cap, having a general manager and a front office who are always looking for potential moves to make the Hurricanes better, always in on all of these big name players that become available in the middle of everything. So I do still think it's going to be an exciting, next month and change ahead to see what the Hurricanes might do.
Yeah, I really do. It's really going to be fun to see what they end up deciding to do. And, like we said, we feel, Lemieux is likely going to be, the odd man out there on that fourth line. So, that would, facilitate them, getting another depth forward, whether it be, calling someone up from the AHL, another signing, say they make trade for Erik Karlsson and San Jose, or if there's another team involved, sends a depth forward on over for the Hurricanes, kind of like Vegas did with Dylan Coghlan, so there's still ways they can fill that hole again. Lemieux, he could totally be a guy that's there 82 games. We simply don't know yet. We're just going off of its past history of what's happened in the past. But there's always got to be that first team, to give them a shot at all 82 games. Maybe that's the Hurricanes. Maybe it's not. We just don't know yet because there are still so many more moves that we are thinking that they're gonna make. Again, trading Pesci, trading for Carlson, signing Tarasenko. There's this roster is not set, and it can very much, like we said, they could roll with this right now. They could like their group that they've gotten, and I'd be fine with it because
Yeah,
it's a
me too.
dang good group. But again, it's not over. It's not over again. And I didn't even mention the D'Angelo trade. Maybe that still happens. Just don't know yet. But at the end of the day, Andrew, if the Hurricanes don't sign Tarasenko, don't trade for Carlson, don't trade for D'Angelo, how do you like this roster's chance at winning a Stanley Cup as it stands 12:50 in the afternoon on July 11th?
Well, so you're saying they don't make a singular other move?
Yeah, everyone they
So
have on the
Brett
roster
Pesci
right
is still.
now.
So Brett Pesci is still here. Brett
Yes,
Pesci
Brett
plays with the
Pesci's
Hurricanes
still
this season.
here, Brady Shea's still here, Jack Drury's still here.
I like it then because I think, you add some of the physicality and goal scoring that you needed up front with Michael Bunting. You hopefully have Andrei Svechnikov healthy. Maybe Teuvo Teravainen bounces back. And like I just talked about, you look at that blue line, Jacob Slavin and Brent Burns, Dmitry Orlov and Brett Pesci, Brady Shea and Jalen Chatfield. That is a brick wall of a defensive core. Good luck getting the puck through. I think the Hurricanes could have a historically great defense if they rolled with that. So I would like this roster's chances as is. I still think without that added goal scoring punch, the margin for error is going to be a little bit lower in the playoffs, but I still would like its chances. I really would.
Yeah, I would as well. It's like you said, really the only thing we feel they need to do at this point is just add some goal scoring. But even if they don't do that, they're still in a good spot. So, we'll just have to continue to watch and see what happens with the Hurricanes, with other moves they decide to make. So make sure you're following the show on Twitter at LO_Hurricanes. Myself on Twitter at Jared Ellis_96. I know I'm just looking like a little circle with another circle coming around it when I talk, but again, I have no idea why my camera just decided to stop working, and the laptop camera is a potato, so yeah, we're not using that. But everything will be good for next episode. I'll figure out what's going on there. So in the meantime, again, make sure you're following the show on Twitter, myself on Twitter, and Andrew on Twitter at ASchnitt53. And we will talk to you guys in the next episode. I will be at Prospect Development Camp tomorrow. So make sure if you see me, you come say hi. Maybe we'll do something for the show. I don't know. I haven't planned it out that far yet. So make sure you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday. And as always, let's go Canes.